Hey everyone, my name is Marshall Mind, and today I'll be giving you guys my breakdown of the EA Sports UFC 2 beta. The beta was available online for about a week, and in that time, I believe I played no less than 400 online fights. So I did put some time into it, and overall, I'd say it was a very pleasant experience playing. But I'm gonna break down my experience into three categories, and in this particular video, I'll be talking about the striking. So it's going to be striking, grappling, and the clinch. So let's get started with the striking. Now, when it comes to the striking system, the first thing that might be a bit of a challenge to some people to get used to is the high and low blocking system, especially if you played EA Sports UFC 1. The weak block in EA Sports UFC 1 was a huge part of a lot of players' success, and with that gone, and with that being replaced with the high and low block, I noticed that a lot of people kept forgetting to block their body, and because of that, I was seeing a lot of body shot finishes early on. And not just that, you actually have to manually block leg kicks now, and a lot of people didn't do that at first, so I also saw quite a few leg kick TKOs. A lot of people also had a bit of problem adjusting to the new feel of strikes because the distance covered by the automatic lunge on jabs, straights, and hooks has been greatly reduced. So I did see a lot of players missing shots way more than usual. And this really played into my favorite style of play, and I was able to really enjoy picking players apart and fighting a technical style of fight. That is until players realize that A, they can cover a ridiculous amount of distance with the Superman punch and it does a lot of damage. B, they can still chase you down with body strikes, hooks and uppercuts to be exact. C, spinning techniques can be repeated over and over and over again without adequate tax on stamina. And D, leg kicks are problematic. And with that, my level of enjoyment with the striking system reduced greatly. Now, I'm not going to turn this into a complaint video, but I'm going to point out a few things that needs to be tweaked if the striking system is to be elevated above what it is now. And don't get me wrong, it is good. It's not bad, but it can be better, okay? So number one, I believe that body jabs, straights, hooks, and uppercuts should not have an automatic lunge to them. They should be completely stationary strikes. And when you watch MMA fights, you don't see fighters chase down opponents with body strikes. You just don't see this happening. This is not something that happens in kickboxing or even in MMA. The only time you see a flurry to the body is when the opponent is pinned against the cage or pinned against the ropes in boxing or kickboxing, and the game should work in a similar way. So I say, take out the automatic lunge and force players to use their footwork and head movement to get on the inside if they want to strike to the body. This is a problem because they reduced the automatic lunge on other strikes like the jabs, the straights, the hooks, but they forgot to reduce the automatic lunge on the body hooks and the body uppercuts. I'm not sure if they just forgot to reduce the automatic lunge or if they left it in on purpose, but it needs to, one, be reduced, the distance you can cover with them, or make them completely stationary strikes. That would be my ideal. Make them stationary strikes, and the whole body strike flurry spammy feeling of the game is going to be reduced greatly. Number two, add bleed through on high block. Right now, the high block is a perfect block, and no matter how many times you flurry to the head, nothing gets through. But it shouldn't be this way. The problem with this is when you hurt your opponent and they hold the high block, you have absolutely no choice but to start throwing flurries to the body. And if you want to have any hopes of finishing, that's really all you have to do, and that's not right. Okay? These fighters are fighting with MMA gloves, not boxing gloves, so strikes should definitely bleed through reasonably, okay? This would also make the head a more inviting target as opposed to the body, and that's how it should be in MMA. Number three, checked leg kicks should cause an equal amount of damage to the kicker. The same amount of damage you do when you land a leg kick should happen when your kick gets checked. Not only is this realistic, this will balance out the leg kicks and in turn encourage players to set them up properly as opposed to just spamming them. Also, the random leg kick health events are not necessary at all, and they should be removed, in my opinion. So, make checking leg kicks an action that players want to take, not just to defend against the leg kick, but also to punish the kicker for setting them up poorly. And then remove leg kick health events, and leg kicks are perfect. Number 4, increase the damage from slip counters. Right now, using the new 360 head movement is not as attractive as using the parry, because you are not granted increased damage from parry counters and not given any increased damage from slip counters. At least to me, it didn't feel like it. This needs to be addressed. If I slip a hook and return with a hook of my own, it should deal increased damage, and if it does, players will be encouraged to not just use the head movement as a defensive tool to avoid shots, but also a counter tool. That leads me to number 5, which is tone down the parry. Right now, when a jab is parried, you have enough time to counter with a head kick before your opponent can even react to it. This is about as ridiculous gets. A jab parry should only reward you with enough time to land a jab of your own, and a straight parry should allow you enough time to counter with a straight. It should be like this, nothing more, nothing less, because right before the beta went on offline, the striking system was quite literally a parry mess. That's all the striking system was. Looking for that parry, looking for that head kick, looking for that overhand right, and it just got ridiculous. You can't even throw a jab right now without getting your head kicked off, and that is simply not how kickboxing works. So that needs to be addressed. Number 6, increase the stamina tax on high risk techniques. Certain strikes like the Superman punch, the wheel kick to the body and head, cage strikes, spinning back fists, etc. should come with a high risk as well as high reward. But right now they only come with high reward and very little risk. The stamina tax on attempting these strikes should be significantly higher than the stamina tax on techniques with low risk. The stamina tax should even be higher, almost unforgiving if you miss one of these strikes. You should be left vulnerable to a significant counter if you attempt these strikes recklessly. This will encourage players to time these strikes correctly and not just attempt them without any care in the world. Left up to me, I just disable flashy techniques once a fighter's short and long-term stamina goes below a certain point. But I don't really think that, that's something that the developers are going to be willing to do. So just increase the stamina tax on these strikes, the base stamina tax on these strikes, whether they land or not, and increase it when they miss. Okay, the Superman punch especially needs some special attention. Okay, and it has to be seriously nerfed because right now it is literally the most ridiculous strike in the game. It covers a ridiculous amount of distance and it does a ridiculous amount of damage. Okay, it really needs some special attention. And lastly, number 7, increase the stopping power on jabs and straights. The jab and the straights are much better than they were in EA Sports UFC 1 because they have noticeably more stopping power. Okay, you'll notice that as soon as you play the game, and you can actually end fights with the straight punch now, even the jab sometimes, but they are still not where they need to be. A well-timed straight should beat a hook, overhand, and uppercut. That is, if you want to encourage players to not want to turn every single fight into a brawl. Something about the striking system in EA Sports UFC 2 just made you want to engage in a brawl every single time. It did not encourage or reward tactical, technical style of play as it should. And a big reason for that is the jabs and the straights did not do as much damage and did not have as much stopping power as they should. This has been talked about to death, so I won't spend much time on it, but those two strikes should definitely be buffed just a little bit more to make them as viable as they should be. Now, the good news is that a lot of these changes are already being implemented in the game when it comes to the striking system, and the final version will be much better than what we saw in the beta. And not just that, these developers have shown that they are more than willing to constantly support the game with gameplay patches, and we saw that in EA Sports UFC 1. So it's always going to be a work in progress, and changes will constantly be made, and that's really good to know. Overall, the striking system is a step in the right direction, much better than EA Sports UFC 1, and will be much better when the actual game drops, so keep an eye on that. Once again, remove the automatic lunge on body strikes. Number 2, add bleed through on high block. Number 3, add damage to checked leg kicks. Number 4, increase damage from slip counters. Number 5, tone down the parry system. Number 6, increase stamina attacks on high risk techniques. And number 7, increase the stopping power on jabs and straights. I, as well as other game changers, have already pitched these changes to the developers, and they seemed really welcoming of them. So fingers crossed that we'll see these changes in the actual game. But that's it for now. I decided to break down the videos like this to allow me to put my thoughts in order. So I'll leave it at this. The next breakdown is gonna cover the grappling system, and after that it's gonna cover the clinch, and that video should be available sometime tomorrow or the next, so look out for that. And also let me know what you thought about the striking system when you played the beta, if you got to play the beta, because not everyone got to play it. Did you enjoy it? Was it better than you expected? Was it worse than you expected? Let me know in the comment section below. If you have any questions at all that I did not answer in this video, leave them in the comment section below and I will answer them. But that's it. That's it. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys very soon. Be safe.